I don't have any makeup on. You told me no one's going to see you.
Hey, stop. We're live.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, I'm going to take my glasses off.
There's a glare. We probably should move a little more this way.
Okay. We're just having issues this morning, so please just bear with us. Anyway, we'll figure this out. I know Jessica looks like she's like glowing.
Sorry.
Trying to figure out how to get it. Okay. I'm Sheri with Pearl at the Mailbox. I'm a human trafficking survivor, and this is...
I am Jessica Jekyll, and I am the administrative assistant for Pearl at the Mailbox.
And I'm in my house, and I do have my dogs, and they are going to make noise, and I apologize in advance, but that's just the way that it is until we can figure this whole thing out. But we wanted to come on here. We're going to start this series called Let's Talk About It, and we'll get all this stuff figured out as far as camera settings and stuff. We're new at it, but we just want to have a conversation about what happened yesterday with the verdict with Diddy.
Not good.
No, it wasn't good.
But like you said, expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was expected. I wish I could get that light off of you.
I feel angelic.
You do. Maybe we could have you move.
I'm going to sit on this side.
Okay. Sorry, we're moving around. Just be patient with us. We're trying to figure this out.
That's much better.
Okay.
Much better.
So maybe she's not glowing. So anyway, we're new at this.
We'll get it all figured out. Promise.
I wanted
That's better.
Yeah, and there goes my glasses. Wanted to talk about what happened with Diddy. And
Very disappointing.
it is disappointing, but at the same time, it's expected. I expected it. Because I don't think people understand human trafficking.
No.
Any type of trafficking. They don't understand the bond that the victim has with the trafficker.
Yeah.
And it's the emotional bond. And it's the physical threat of harm and danger to just yourself. And you're going to do what you're told to do.
We talked about this last night about how, because I'm learning every day with this job, I learn something new every day from you, and it's like a continuous education. But people on the daily don't have that kind of education about
Right.
how it all works, and so it's like an additional hurdle in terms of prosecution and punishment. Sorry about the dogs, but
it's inevitable when I'm trying to do something in my house. My dogs are going to make noise.
So,
but you're right. Things are survivors like myself are starting to speak up, and I think that we're going to make some change. It's just going to go slow because there's obviously a lot of education that needs to happen for people to even understand the behavior of a victim that is in the middle of being trafficked.
And you said it doesn't take long for a person's whole mindset to change, because there's the threat of death, abuse. Mm-hmm. The trauma is just in the levels, because you introduce me to people all the time that go through this, and you've explained what it was like for you. They've explained to me they're new into being, I'm cautious of even saying free, because you're never really free after being trafficked. I mean, like, the trauma continues, but you've explained to me even the holds on you that aren't physical, but the mental holds.
Yeah.
So, but you said it's an ongoing education there is a disconnect in terms of education with prosecution and
just the general public.
Yes. And we get it all the time. Like, oh, well, that's icky. We don't want to talk about that.
It is icky.
Yeah, it is. It's horrible.
It is icky, but a victim doesn't choose for this to happen, even when it's a high profile case. So my heart goes out to Cassie and Jane and the other individual who testified. First of all, I commend their courage. You were very brave, and I commend you for that, because that's hard. And this is one of the many, many reasons that most victims of trafficking choose not to go to court and testify, because one, you're victimized all over again, and secondly, every action that you do as a trafficked person is scrutinized and dissected. Oh, well, you said at one moment you loved that person, so okay, we're going to say that you loved them. How do you know, how do you not know that perhaps that victim was told, when I give you a certain text message, this is how you are to respond?
You've explained this in depth to me before, about you always knew what was expected of you. You knew what to do, and you knew what was going to happen to you if you didn't do what you were told.
That's right. And people don't understand, just again, the mental hold. And that's just something that we need to continue to talk about. We need to continue to educate the community about this idea of people who are trafficked are kidnapped, chained to a bed, can't move about somewhat freely, but freely with control or coercion. It needs to be addressed, because victims and then survivors, oh gosh, it's hard, because you have to deal with this mindset that, oh, like, you're tainted, you're icky, you're gross. But you know what happened to me, I didn't choose for it to happen to me, and I didn't even realize what was happening to me
It was too late.
until it was way too late. And then I have no way to say anything. And then there's blackmail. There is always blackmail. Somebody who is trafficking another person has blackmail on them, whatever it may be. Videos, text.
You said otherwise they would run after the first assault.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I tried to run many times in my 7 years of being trafficked, but the consequences were really great. And
yeah, most people don't realize it. Yeah, most people just don't realize. Even the people that know you don't realize all the things that have happened to you. But I mean, I understand. It's like you have to. I mean, you've taught me that when these different verdicts come in and different things come up in the press, and I get very upset, because I'm just like, well, how could they do that? And you're like, listen, I expected that, but it is because there is a lack, even in people that are even prosecutors, defense attorney, there is a total lack of understanding in the public eye for what trafficking actually is, and how it affects the person, and why they say what they say. And you were talking to me about, I wanted to touch on, if we could, you were talking about reasonable doubt was a huge part of it. And you said that it definitely in the Diddy trial was the burden of proof. And I never thought of that. I thought, well, everybody's going to hear what all the on the record, everything that everybody testified to.
right.
But you went into great, well, kind of detail with me yesterday about how the burden of proof, like, you weren't surprised at all.
No, because it's very easy. I got these little pop-ups. The defense has a very easy job, and had a very easy job in this case. All they had to do was show burden of proof on the prosecution side. And so reasonable doubt is in there right away.
Yeah.
So when they start playing or showing the text messages of communication, when Cassie was saying that she wanted to go to these freak offs and that she loved him and all that stuff, in the juror's mind, they saw that as consent. However, that really could be that she knew she had to say that to appease him, to ensure that maybe the assault that she knew was coming wouldn't be as intense.
Hence the hotel assault that they have on video. Which,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's what finally opened this case up. So somebody who's being trafficked, you can't always take their behaviors as normal, if that makes sense.
Face value.
Well, yeah, because behind the scenes, behind closed doors, where nobody's watching, there's no text messages, there's no video, that you are expected to behave a certain way. You're expected to say certain things. You're expected to do certain things. And you personally know the form of punishment that will fall upon you if you don't do those things. So I agree that the texts probably hurt in that case, but
that's probably what happened.
of course it is. I think he covered his tracks to make it look as though he had no part in any of this and that she was a willing participant. And that's all the defense had to say, or to put that narrative in the mind of the jurors. Well, okay, she was willing. When you're being human trafficked, you're not willing to have what's happening to you happen, but at the same time, you have no control over what's happening to you. Again, it goes back to the consequences and the outcome of what will happen if you don't submit, which I guess is the key word, is to submit to.
Or give up.
Well,
is it like
I don't know that I gave up myself. There were times that I got extremely depressed, but I think it was submitting, just going inward and saying, okay, I know if I do XYZ, either the assault or the punishment won't be as bad. But if I push back on X, Y, or Z, I know what's coming. And so I think it's very important for prosecutors that are prosecuting these types of cases to really invest time in survivor lived experts that can help them really understand the mindset of somebody who's being trafficked and why they may do the things that they do, and how, like in my case, I can share things that may have looked like consent, but they weren't consent.
I mean, but you've even told me, like Sheri's even told me the things that we take for granted on the daily. Someone that is being trafficked, like she was told when she could eat, when she could drink, what she had to eat. Like you didn't even get to choose those. So, I mean, it just, this whole case just like,
What's confusing is that, probably should have turned the light on. What's confusing is the actions of a trafficked victim seem normal in that you go out to dinner, you have a nice meal, you're wearing a pretty dress, so you're playing what looks like a normal relationship, a normal role. You're dating and I was forced to do that all the time because of the fear. When somebody scares you so much and you really want to live, you're gonna do what you need to do to survive. And this whole thing breaks my heart, but I'm not surprised by the outcome.
I thought for sure he was, but see, my perspective is different. I'm a sexual assault survivor, but I was not trafficked. My reaction, I think, was a little more naive. That's what I always say. Like a lot of times my reactions are very naive, even though I'm learning on the daily, and I go to different training, and Sheri educates me every single day on what trafficking looks like. And every day I learn something different, and I'm horrified. Every day when I find something, and it's very difficult, but my reaction was very naive because I honest to God thought, well, there's no, even though I do this every day and we work every day, I really thought they testified and all these people came forward and everybody knows what a horrible human this guy is and what he's done. He's literally bought and sold and abused all these men and women, men and women. And so my reaction was at first was very naive. And then we got on the phone and she's like, not surprised at all, because the reaction is always, oh, well, but like you said, she wrote this and she said this. And so like the reasonable doubt was.
It was there. Yeah. And this is a prime example of why victims of human trafficking will not are very, very reluctant to testify in court because they're judged. Every action and word they
Picked
say
apart.
is torn apart because the defense will get up there and their job is just to say, you agreed to this. You agreed to everything that happens. And all they have to get you to do is say that. And they've completed their case.
And it worked. And it worked.
It did work. It did work. We have a long way to go. Our judicial system needs to get caught up on understanding the mindset of somebody that's trafficked. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Also, having survivors testify on the stand is important. Very, very important to provide insight into the reality of how a human trafficking survivor behaves. And again, like we talked about, it's because we know the punishments that are coming our way, or the assault that's going to be worse, or the lack of food that might be coming, or
if you get food at all.
Yeah, but it's so crazy and misleading because Diddy was very wealthy. Cassie got to experience a lot of very nice things. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't trafficked.
And it came at a very high price.
It did. So in my 7 years, I had 4 traffickers. My last trafficker was a high-end trafficker. Kind of like, no, not Diddy. I mean, I had nothing to do with Diddy. I've never had any interaction with him. But I was part of a high trafficking ring. So it was not uncommon for us to be dressed up because we're going to a nice dinner. Actually go to a nice dinner, and then behind closed doors, the abuse is horrific.
Yeah, and you had mentioned a lot of Sheri's abuse was they knew not to leave marks, and your last trafficker was a woman.
No.
Oh no. Oh, sorry, my correction.
No, she was the second.
She was the second. Yeah. So, but I mean, that was one of the first things I learned. I was like, well, how did people not see the abuse that you had on you? And she's like, oh, they knew not to leave marks on me. Nobody wants to.
Somebody who's buying another individual, which is the reality, somebody is buying that person.
Mm-hmm.
They're buying that person. I was a commodity. I was like picked off a shelf. And so the person who's the perpetrator, the buyer, in their own mental delusion, if they see bruises on your body, they can't handle that because they need to continue to feed this narrative that it's a date. I'm just paying for a date. And that she wants this. She wants this to happen to her. She really likes what I'm doing. And if there's marks on the body that don't come from that buyer, then it kind of shakes the delusional mindset of the buyer that in some way this is consensual. But in no way did I ever consent to anything that happened to me. Again, I knew what would happen to me by my trafficker if I didn't submit. Plus, I couldn't run. I had a bodyguard with me. And you have to think, these high dollar trafficking victims, there's no way they can run. I couldn't run. There was nowhere I could go.
Yeah, and Cassie said that Cassie, who testified against Diddy, she